Okay, so today's session is focusing on using diagnostic assessments to inform instruction. And my name is Michelle McCauley. I'm the mathematics consultant for P to 12 in the Cape Breton Victoria Regional Center for Education. And this presentation will focus on some of our experiences that we've tried in our region and shared with teachers, and hopefully it can be useful to you in your practice as well. On the screen, you'll see some guiding principles in regards to assessments. So assessments should contribute to student learning, achievement, and well-being. Assessments are valid, reliable, and fair. Assessments are planned, purposeful, inclusive, and equitable. Assessments are aligned with expected learning outcomes, instructional approaches, and assessments respond to individual student learning needs, so for example, assistive technology, extra time, whatever is documented in their adaptations. As well, assessments provide students with multiple opportunities and ways to demonstrate their understanding, allow for application of concepts and skills related to the expected learning outcomes, and assessments provide ongoing information about student learning that is meaningful, accessible, and communicated in a variety of ways. So teachers must keep these guiding principles at the forefront when developing both summative and formative assessment plans in their classroom to support the student learning of mathematics. For the purpose of this presentation today, we'll be exploring the use of diagnostic assessments to inform instruction. On the screen, you'll see some information that's provided from a source. It's Mathematics Assessments, a practical handbook for grades 3 to 5. It's provided by the NCTM, which is the National Council of Teachers of Mathematics. So when selecting and developing tools of assessment, a classroom assessment tool must be useful to teachers, to students, to guardians, to provide information as discussed on the previous slide. To be useful, a good assessment should match what students have been studying, focus on important mathematics rather than trivial concepts, yield useful information, not just scores, use clear and helpful criteria, provide a complete picture of a student's learning and abilities, and allow students to continue to learn mathematics during and after the assessment experience. A good assessment plan in mathematics should include various types of assessment practices, pre-assessment of knowledge, formative assessment for learning, and summative assessment of learning. Oh, sorry, didn't advance there. Oh, it advanced too far, sorry, bear with me here. Okay, just gonna pop out for 1 second. There seems to be a slide that's, there we go. So the guiding principles that I just reviewed on the last couple of slides, I'm not sure why that one's not coming up. Sorry. There we go. I know you can see on the screen, so I'll just pop back into the full presentation in 1 second. So the National Council of Teachers of Mathematics, NCTM, which I mentioned on the previous screen, has a position statement on formative assessment, which emphasizes 3 important ideas. So assessment should enhance student learning, it's a valuable tool for making instructional decisions, and it should help learners progress. The feedback that is provided from these assessments should help them progress. It urges teachers to, in their mathematical teaching practice, to incorporate evidence into children's thinking and ongoing refinement of their instruction, which is really the purpose of this presentation today. So using these guiding principles as well as those outlined in the assessment policy provided by the Department of Education and Early Childhood Development, in our region, our mathematics team have developed resources and provided in-class support to help teachers with this. Later in the presentation today, we'll examine some of those resources that were created and provided with teachers, as well as the topics of professional learning offered to teachers to incorporate diagnostic assessments. as a form of formative assessment tool into the practice to help inform their instruction. There we go, it came up now. Sorry for that. So as mentioned previously, we're going to explore the use of diagnostic assessment. So if we consider diagnostic assessment a form of formative instruction to be used by teachers to inform their practice, just for clarity, a diagnostic assessment is used to determine the student's understanding and level of knowledge or skill at the beginning of the unit or study, and students can show what they know, and teachers can adjust their instruction to meet the needs of students. When diagnostic assessments are used effectively, the result can be a better experience for both the teacher and the student. The educator has a better understanding of any knowledge gaps that may exist and how to address them. And the students are engaged as teaching is responsive to their needs. It is applicable and it's not repetitive. So diagnostic assessments, how to develop. So one of the first steps you should consider is the pacing guides that are provided as well from the Department of Education. The pacing guides can tell what are the required outcomes for that grade level. And then another layer is using the progression of outcomes of the previous grade level content. For a diagnostic, this is really important because it tells what skills and knowledge the students should have been exposed to and have an understanding of to be successful with the current grade level expectations. So I'm just going to switch my tab here for a second just so that you can see. There has been a progression provided from the department, and it kind of shows the previous knowledge for the grade levels. This is also available on the department website for the curriculum. But the great idea is it talks about which topic we're investigating and how it is connected in previous grade levels. So it would show the skills that are needed. So this becomes an important tool for us when we're developing diagnostic assessments so that we can include those in the assessment pieces to see if students are ready to handle the topic, the required grade level content. Excuse me. Refer to the curriculum guide as another strategy when we're developing diagnostic assessments for instructional and assessment strategies. As well, in the curriculum guide, you'll see a progression of outcomes. So you'll also see the scope and sequence, which would show previous grade level content related to that topic. The fourth bullet on the screen says assess which outcomes need extra attention and support. This could be through classroom experience evidence, as well as information in the lessons learned documents, which is also provided from the Department of Education and Early Childhood Development. The extra attention and support are common topics that the students may struggle with. So this can help become the basis or the foundation of what you would incorporate into your diagnostic assessment. And it could be created either as a paper copy or on Google Form to be used. So all of these points are considered in the design of diagnostic assessments. The assessments must align with prior knowledge and skill expectations and the common misconception errors that occur. In fact, using the misconceptions or errors in the distractors, if you're using selected response, the possible answers in the selected response options can help inform you as the teacher of instructional strategies that are needed for student understanding. And we look at some examples later in this presentation, which will hopefully make that a little bit clearer. So how to use them, diagnostic assessments. They can be either administered whole class, small group, or individual, depending on the needs of the class. Once they're administered, the results are analyzed to plan supports required. And different types of intervention can be provided based on the analysis of this data, of the results. So it could be whole group instruction, which would be tier 1 support, small group instruction guided by tier 1 or tier 2 support, and then one-to-one intervention, which could be tier 1 or tier 2 supports as well. So depending on the results of the students, you would plan the appropriate intervention. For the purpose of this presentation, we'll focus on short quiz types of assessments that are used as diagnostic assessments. And just keep in mind that diagnostics can come in many forms. It could be an entrance ticket, it could be knowledge hook questions, interview questions, etc. But for the purpose of this this presentation today, we're just going to look at quiz type formats. So on your screen, you'll see an example. The first page of a diagnostic that was created. In 2021-22, in our region, we completed a pilot program to help support identified schools to address student challenges in their understanding. So in this pilot, we worked with 6 schools with multiple classes in each school, and it was a collaboration between student services and programs, including our mathematics team. In the pilot, we developed diagnostic assessments and consultations with the teachers. Then the assessments were administered in class. Some did it as a whole group, while others chose to do small groups. And the small group delivery was the teacher would take a group to the back while other students were working on centers. And it became just that's the administration of it. The teachers administered and then scored the assessment, and then our math team, as well as the student services staff, supported the teachers in the interpretation of the data to try to develop a support plan that was needed in response to the evidence that we saw. I'm just going to switch my tabs so that you can see what it actually looks like. So this would be a teacher copy, and you'll see some guiding principles for the teachers. So if they struggle with certain questions, then that would be tier 2, and then tier 1. But what we want to illustrate is when in the design, this is actually a grade 2 assessment. But using the scope and sequence, or that document that I showed you previously, we work back as far as grade primary because those skills and knowledge were connected to the grade 2 expected learning. So the first question focuses on a primary outcome, 3 from the number strand. The second one was grade 1, and so on. So there was questions available with ideas of what the teacher should be looking for the answers for the students. So this is just a visual of what it could look like. I'm going to keep scrolling, so just don't mind that blur for a second. And they're high leverage questions that were based on misconceptions that were evident, both in the classroom and through experience working in that grade level. You'll see in this document as well, we provided some interview questions because that was a teacher request. So the first one could be done individually, so 1-to-1 with the student, and then the other ones could be administered whole class. So that's the teacher copy. It provides a lot of information for the teacher. What you'll notice too at the bottom is there's some teaching strategies attached, which are just copied from our curriculum guide, the instructional and the assessment section of our curriculum guide, which relates to it in mathematics. So that is what a complete copy looks like, and that was for grade 2, just to kind of give you a visual of what the assessment could look like. In this program as well, teachers scored the assessment and recorded the information in a spreadsheet so that they could easily interpret what the results were showing them. Along the bottom on the screen, I know the numbers are too small, but you can see that there's certain ones highlighted along the bottom. These highlighted would indicate tier 1 instruction is required. So the whole class struggled with this type of question, and the teacher would benefit from doing a whole class lesson. Left to right, you'll also see some highlighted students here. And what would happen with these students is they benefit from additional tier 2 support. So they seem to struggle a little bit more with certain questions. So they were identified for receiving support either from the classroom teacher or from the learning support teacher in that case. And then further analysis of this data as well showed students who had common misconceptions. So it was actually a really good group to bring together to do some work with it. And it allowed the teachers to group the students with similar strengths and challenges to provide a more direct instructional plan for these students. So instructional strategies, as suggested from the curriculum guide, as you saw on the document I showed you previously, were implemented in class. And these students were experiencing some success, and student growth was evident. So just a quick summary of that, we had 68 students who received Tier 2 and Tier 3 support based on the identification from the assessment tool, and then a little bit over 86% maintained their proficiency or their understanding on the question, or increased. So they at least kept the content correct and could answer similar questions about that outcome, and or were successful in ones that they were not on the diagnostic. Tier 1 outcomes were identified from that, so that informed the teachers to kind of do some additional support in class with those outcomes that are identified on the screen. And this is just a different visual, kind of shows some growth. So the blue was their pre-assessment, and then the red was their post-assessment of the same outcome, same level of cognitive difficulty for the students. So you could see growth in most areas. There were some that either maintained, or you see one decrease. So the teachers use that information to provide support ongoing throughout the year for the students. So the previous information that I showed was around grade 2. We also ran a similar program this current school year in grade 9. Teachers use diagnostic assessments in their classes prior to the start of each unit. On the left of your screen, you can see an image of the progression of outcomes for prior knowledge for Unit 1 topics in grade 9. So you can see the expected learnings on the very right-hand side for grade 9, and then the previous related content outcomes for grade 8 and grade 7. The diagnostic helped to identify strengths as well as challenges for students, and Tier 1 topics were identified, and the teachers addressed these topics through whole group instruction. As well, students needing further support were identified, and Tier 2 support was provided. Students were reassessed after the instruction took place, and growth was evident, about a 3.4 increase in understanding. So again, it was an example of using diagnostics and then planning instruction around the results that we saw, and capitalizing on the supports in the building to provide some supports for those students. Just a couple other examples to kind of show you visually what they look like and how we design them a little bit. So in grade 7, this is an operations with fractions, which is an area of struggle for some of our students. You can see at the top the scope and sequence, and with grade 7, we traced right back to grade 4, which is some of the foundational understanding of fractional concepts for our students. So again, I'll just scroll through so that you can kind of get a visual of what it looks like. So there's select a response questions. And again, the distractors that would be picked are chosen around misconceptions for our students. And if the student would select that misconception, then the teacher could respond appropriately with instructional strategies. So you can see there's some short select a response questions here, and timely. They're designed so that they're not too long. They would definitely be completed within a class period. And again, we can't assess everything, but we try to reach the high leverage questions that we would know students may have some difficulty understanding. So in this example, there's 12 select a response. And there's a few construct a response, because feedback from the teachers was that we need to see some written out work from the students. So you can see visually, there's some questions that the students would be expected to write in. and show what they know. As well, feedback from our teachers in both of these pilot programs have led to us, they've asked us to provide it in a Google form. They've also asked a linked copy of our curriculum guide to it, or as you saw in the previous document where we copy and pasted the instructional strategies there. One of the feedbacks was the teachers asked as well, could we see or could we co-develop a diagnostic assessment using Google Forms to speed or to ease the delivery of feedback to students. So on the screen you'll see this is just the same assessment provided as a Google form. So visually, same questions that were asked on the paper copy, and it self-corrects obviously using a Google form. So you can see that this one was provided as well to teachers. Just going back to the show. I won't scroll through this one, but I also want to show you in grade 10, some of the teachers we worked with wanted to develop a diagnostic assessment for their units as well. And I wanted to show you that sometimes you can run into, there is no outcome in the previous grade. Like, so in grade 9, when we're looking at grade 10, which would be the current expectations for M04, there isn't a connection because it's new content in that way to grade 9, but when we look back to skills that they would need to be successful in trigonometry ratio understanding, there are some expected learnings in grade 8. So sometimes you may have to use the progression of outcomes and move back a few grades as well. So the diagnostic assessment, as I mentioned previously, some of the feedback in these pilots working with teachers, they've asked, could we link the curriculum document so you can see the highlighted blue? The teacher would click on that, or bring them directly to grade 3 and 11, and so on across the top, the scope and sequence that's shown. And just a copy and paste directly from our curriculum guide. So all of this information is available for us in our guide to help inform the instruction. So if a student struggled with the first question shown on the screen, which equation represents the number line shown, which is grade 3, outcome 11 in the number string, they can just pop into either that part of the document, or they could come to the instructional strategies and look at what are some suggested strategies we can implement in the classroom. Both teachers and learning support teachers who were supporting in the classroom found this a great benefit because this gave them a starting point of where to work with the students in small group instruction. So in our experiences, teachers have found that the use of diagnostic assessments have provided more clarity and insight into student understanding and has allowed them to plan more effectively. Both teachers and learning support teachers are collaborating to design well-developed support plans for students, which promotes engagement, growth in student achievement, as well as confidence in the student's ability to learn mathematics. The students feel engaged in learning, which is awesome to see. So there's a final quote here that says, the research is clear, formative assessment works. It works because it has a direct effect on the two most important players in the teaching learning process, the teacher and the student. Using diagnostic assessments as a type of formative assessment will benefit our students' understanding of mathematical concepts as teachers are informed and can plan appropriately, and students are supported in the journey of understanding the mathematical concepts. So I know that was a really quick run through and a lot of information thrown at once, but I just wanted to kind of give you a quick overview of how we can use diagnostic assessments in the form of quizzes, either paper copy or Google Forms, to inform instruction. Yeah, so thank you. I'm going to pause my talking for now and see if there's any questions there, or if you want to unmute and ask some questions, that could work as well.
Good morning, everyone. I'll just jump in here for a second. My name is Tara Cormier, and I just wanted to thank Michelle today for offering her experience with using diagnostic assessments to inform instruction. I really like that quote that you finished with. Really, again, maintaining that collaboration between the teacher and the students and the whole educational team, and making sure that we're focused on the students and their learning and identifying those strengths and challenges. I think you and your region have done so much work in creating these assessments. I see them as a really, really useful and valuable tool, and responding to that teacher feedback, making them into Google Forms. I think all of that will go a long way to supporting students in their mathematics instruction. So I do see a couple of questions here in the chat. I'm not sure if you can see it, Michelle, but I can read it out for you. Miranda has asked, are there instructions available for creating the spreadsheets to record results from the diagnostic assessments? So
Yeah.
how do we create that spreadsheet?
Okay. We've actually provided a template. I can link one to this presentation and we can share that as well, Tara, probably. But we've done that where we've just provided a blank template. We've done as well some PD with teachers, so a lot of support at site, and as well regionally we would take the teachers together and do some work around that side. But our team and student services have actually supported quite a bit of that piece of using the spreadsheet. So I can add a link into one of the slides and I can share that back with you as well so that you can have a template. So really what it is just one teacher's, I'll share a screen really quick so that you can kind of see that. So obviously for privacy, we remove the students' names, and what you can see on the screen is 1 indicates they were correct, and 0 would indicate that they are not correct with an answer in this case. And as you move across, you can see each question and which outcome is recorded, and it just auto sums the left to right, so you can see the total for the students. So obviously there's 13 questions on this assessment. So that student had achieved 6 correct answers, 5, 6, and so on. So they were identified as maybe needing a little bit additional support at that time. And along the bottom, it does the same. It kind of calculates how many students were correct out of how many questions. And in this case, we had some conversations with the teachers. You can see that their percentage was about 57 or 62, but they felt that their class should be more successful at that time. So it's almost like the bottom 25% of scores were used. So those questions that are highlighted along the bottom were identified as, we're going to address it as a whole class and we're going to talk about those topics together. So that can kind of just show you that piece, but I don't mind, we could just put a link in to something like this in the document. This one was a little bit more formal because we also provided some graphs. That's not typical. It was just, we were asked to kind of do a presentation on whether this pilot program worked or not. So it's a little bit more formal, but you can see the pre-assessment and then the post-assessment and the comparison of the two. Tara, I'm actually not seeing any live questions in the chat, so if there's anything else.
Yeah, so at the moment, Miranda says thank you, and that's the only question that I see at the moment. If there are any other additional questions, feel free to turn your mic on, or, oh, I see another question. Sherry asks, is there a document available to provide an overview?
An overview of the assessment or overview of the process? I can provide this PowerPoint and you can have access to that as well. And each of those documents that I shared are linked in it as well.
Yes, she's wondering about both
Okay.
of those things. And one additional question was, what was used for the post assessment? So were there, I guess, the post
That's a great
assessment, was
question.
it the same as the pre assessment, or was it similar to the pre assessment with different questions? If you
Yeah,
could
so
expand on that.
Sure. So the post assessment, because we want to make sure that it's valid and reliable, it was similar cognitive levels, so similar level of difficulty for the students on the same content, same outcome. So we've done that. In some cases, like for example, the question that you saw, I'm just trying to think back. So if we looked at that grade two assessment, I'm just going to share this. Um, so through the classroom instruction, if the teacher was working a lot with 10 frames and they knew that the students had that well under handle, they've used their professional judgment and sometimes and just have graded that one as being successful instead of re-administering an actual assessment tool. So if it was a routine question that they knew through their classroom evidence the students had mastered, on the spreadsheet, they would just go back and where it was a zero, they'd mark it as a one because they had enough evidence at that time to confidently say the students were successful with the outcome. In other cases, what they've done is they've taken the original assessment, just kind of tweaked it a little bit. So maybe changed the number that we were asking about, or yeah, I guess that would be it. So, for example, for the question that's shown, this picture shown represents 15. So instead of using 15, maybe they would change it to 13 or 16 and ask something similar. What does the digit, if they use 16, they might say, what does the digit 6 represent in the number? Or what does the digit, they could keep it as 1. So, based on the needs of the classroom and the experience that they needed, they either just took the pre-assessment and tweaked it a little bit, or they used some of their own classroom evidence to and professional judgment to designate whether the students understood or still needed support with the content. And at
Thank you,
any
Michelle.
point, no
No, thank
problem. If
I don't see any other additional questions in the chat this time.
okay, perfect. Thank you. If there are any questions, feel free. I've left my email there. You can reach out, and if we can provide anything else or any further support, we'll do that as well. Thanks, Tara. I appreciate the help because I think my last question that I can see was earlier at 10 o'clock.
Okay. Well, thank you everyone for participating today as well. We really appreciate you giving up some time in your on your summer vacation to learn more and expand your professional growth. Thank you so much, and hope everybody has a wonderful rest of the day. Hopefully, the sun will come out for you. Take care.